This is Podcast Psychology. Today, we're diving deep into a really fascinating idea. It's this concept of intentionally, disappearing for a bit.
Stepping out of the spotlight.
Exactly. To really focus on, who you want to become.
Right.
If you've ever felt that pull, that need to just step back, refocus, maybe put your head down for a while.
And come back different. Stronger.
Yeah, then this deep dive is definitely for you. We're going to try and unpack the key parts of this approach.
Explore what it really means to transform in the shadows, as it were.
And our goal really is to leave you with some clear insights, things you might actually use.
Without it being overwhelming. Not a fire hose, just useful stuff.
Yeah. What's interesting right off the bat is this idea that pulling back is sometimes the fastest way forward.
It really goes against the grain, doesn't it? We're sort of wired to share, connect all the time.
Okay, so let's start with that initial phase, the disappearing part. The material we looked at really hammers home something that sounds simple.
But isn't always easy.
Right, shutting your mouth. It argues that, talking too much about our goals, it can actually backfire.
What's the thinking there, like the psychology behind it?
Well, think about how good it feels to tell someone your exciting new plan.
Yeah, you get that little buzz.
Exactly. And that buzz, that little dopamine hit, it can sort of trick your brain, make it feel like you've already achieved something.
Ah, okay. So it can actually reduce your motivation to do the real work.
Kind of like spending the reward before you've actually earned it. Yeah.
That makes sense. And the source mentioned something about this being almost automatic, like an instinct.
Yeah, this tendency to spill information, almost like a survival thing we need to consciously fight against if we want this disappearing thing to work.
Right. And it's not just the internal psychology, is it? There are external factors, too.
Like what?
Well, you share your big dream, and maybe you get well-meaning advice that's actually discouraging.
Or just straight-up criticism. Yeah.
So becoming more of a mystery, as the source puts it, it's like building a protective bubble.
A space to work without all that external noise.
It's not about being secretive for its own sake, but strategically managing that information flow.
Okay, so if step one is controlling what we share, the next step seems to be about our internal compass. The source says, only care what you think.
That sounds like a huge shift.
It does. It feels like a big ask.
Well, the challenge is seeing how much we do, often unconsciously. That's just chasing external approval.
Right.
The material pushes you to accept that, honestly, other people probably aren't thinking about your life nearly as much as you assume they are.
That's humbling, maybe?
A little bit.
Yeah.
And it suggests this really interesting mental trick to help.
Oh, yeah.
Imagine an other person in your mind. But this person,
Yeah.
it's actually your ideal self, you're working towards.
Okay.
And you become obsessed, really invested in their opinion of what you're doing.
Huh. So it's like creating your own internal judge, but a constructive one.
Kind of. Your own benchmark.
Yeah.
You detach from needing nods from everyone else.
And focus on living up to this internalized standard. It feels like building self-respect from the inside out.
Less like a puppet, as the source says, dancing to everyone else's tune.
Which leads pretty naturally to the next point. Hide your plans.
Right. And there's that striking analogy they use.
The 5% thing.
Yeah. Every time you spill the beans about a plan, your chance of success drops, supposedly, by 5%.
Wow. That really makes you pause before just casually mentioning your big ambitions, doesn't it?
It definitely does. It pushes for being super deliberate.
Surgically intentional, I think was the phrase.
Yes. Only sharing the bare minimum, and only with someone whose specific input you genuinely strategically need.
Protecting that little spark of an idea before it gets blown out.
And that ties right into the next piece of advice.
Yeah.
Hide your progress.
Okay, so not just the plans, but the results too, while you're in this phase.
Exactly. And again, it's not about being weirdly secretive. It's about maintaining focus.
How so?
Well, think about it. You start getting a bit fitter or making a bit more money. There's that temptation, right?
Show it off. Yeah, definitely.
But why might that be counterproductive in this context?
Maybe it makes you feel like, okay, I've done enough. You ease off too soon.
That could be part of it. Premature satisfaction.
Or maybe it just brings unwanted attention back onto you when you're trying to stay focused. Envy, even.
Possibly. The source also warns that if you start showing off and kind of slip back into old social patterns too early,
You could lose the progress you've made.
yeah, it can potentially erase the gains. It's about staying in that focused transformation zone until things are really locked in.
Keeping the emphasis internal, not on getting external pats on the back.
Precisely. Which brings us to maybe the toughest part for a lot of people, hiding your tears, blood, and failures,
Yeah. This feels really counterintuitive.
doesn't it? Because when we're struggling, the normal human thing is,
Reach out, get comfort, support, complain a bit.
right. But the advice here is resist that.
Hmm.
Deal with the setbacks privately.
Oof. Why?
The idea is that pushing through those rock bottom moments alone, as hard as it is, builds a different kind of strength.
Like true resilience. Character.
Exactly. It suggests those tough times become catalysts for major growth in a way that leaning on others might actually dilute.
Diminish the impact of overcoming it yourself.
In this specific context, yes.
Yeah.
It's about forging that inner steel, that self-reliance.
Okay, so that covers the disappearing elements. What about the transforming part while you're in the shadows?
First step there, pick your targets.
Meaning be crystal clear on what you actually want.
Yeah, super specific. Not just get better, but what does better look like exactly?
Like become an absolute jacked or build a money printing business. Real concrete stuff.
Precisely. Generic goals just don't have the same pull, the same motivating power.
And the advice is to write it down, keep it visible, but still private.
Reinforces the clarity, keeps it front of mind.
Okay, clear target acquired, then what?
Then it's about intense dedication. The source calls it revolve your life around crushing it.
That sounds all-consuming.
It's meant to be for this period. Adopting a one chance in life mindset towards this goal.
Wow.
And the practical steps reflect that, like maybe moving closer to the gym or the library or whatever resource you need.
Cutting down commute time, friction.
Yeah. And time blocking. Meticulously planning your days around this transformation work.
It sounds very structured.
Very. Including dedicating, say, a specific day each week just to review progress, adjust the plan, break down the next steps. Constant strategic effort.
Okay, structure, intensity. What else? There's this interesting bit about reprogramming your mind.
Ah, yes. Happiness is crushing it.
What's that about? Shifting your reward system.
Exactly that. Look, initially, the isolation, the hard graft, is probably to feel tough, uncomfortable.
Sure.
But the idea is, through a conscious mental effort, you can start to find satisfaction, maybe even enjoyment, in the process itself.
Learning to love the grind, the solitude.
Kind of, yeah. Finding pleasure in the discipline, in the focus, in seeing yourself push through. That internal shift is presented as really key.
Making the process itself the reward, not just the end goal.
That's what fuels the long haul.
Okay, so let's say someone does all this. They disappear, they work like crazy in private, they transform. What about reappearing, coming back into the world?
Well, this is where the source takes a really interesting, maybe surprising turn.
How so?
It suggests that if you've done this whole process correctly, really effectively, the need to reappear might just vanish.
Really? You don't feel the urge to show everyone the new you?
Apparently not, or at least not in the same way. The concept mentioned is becoming one with the shadow,
Meaning?
meaning your whole relationship with the external world, with validation, might fundamentally change. Your life transforms so much.
That the old reasons for seeking attention just don't apply anymore.
Exactly. The drive for external validation fades because you've built such a strong internal foundation.
And the source talks about finding calming peace in this state.
Yeah, and a more fulfilling life, potentially. Just continuing to grow, evolve, pursue your goals, but without needing the spotlight or the applause.
It really makes you question what the ultimate goal of personal growth even is, doesn't it?
It does. Is it always about the big reveal? Or can deep, lasting fulfillment be found more quietly, internally?
It's definitely food for thought, that power of intrinsic motivation versus chasing external rewards.
Absolutely. And if we bring this back to you listening, this whole exploration really highlights the power of focus.
Yeah, focus and sheer intention in driving personal change.
It kind of forces us to look at how outside pressures, our own need for validation, can sometimes get in our way.
And it presents this alternative path.
Yeah.
Dedicated internal work, the potential hidden in that quiet effort. So just to wrap up the core ideas for you listening, we've explored this concept of intentionally pulling back, withdrawing a bit, to really zero in on personal transformation.
We talked about shifting focus from needing everyone else's okay to cultivating your own internal standard, your own self-worth.
Right. And we looked at this idea that real, profound growth can happen when you commit to that focused private work operating in the shadows, so to speak.
Hopefully this deep dive has given you a slightly different lens to look through, the new perspective on change.
Yeah, maybe sparked an idea or two that resonates with your own path, your own journey.
Which brings us to a final thought, really. A question for you to maybe mull over,
Okay.
thinking about all this. About disappearing to transform.
Hmm.
What part of your life, if any, might genuinely benefit from a period like that? A time of intentional withdrawal and really focused work.
It's definitely something worth considering as you go about your day.